Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. I am now going to be going over Chapter 1, Part 2 of Kent Hovind's wonderful thesis. It is so much fun. A bit of a program note, I was asked if I could start putting his quotes on a solid background so it's easier to read. I will start doing that next video. By the time I got that request, I had already created the slides for this video, and it took a couple hours to get them done, and there was not time to redo them. From now on, they'll have a solid background to make sure it's easier to read what whoever I'm quoting is saying. I'm also going to start putting notes in my what Bionicle Dance calls the crotch bar to say where I get some of my information from. Kent, it was a good idea to put notes. Something you should have done in your thesis. Oh, something he really should have done in his thesis. Wait till I get to the next chapter and I have to go over all the stuff I had to do to find the quotes he quoted. So gender is just a social construct, and believing in God is a crutch. When you mix them together and give them a whirl, what do you got? Atheist-y girl! If my review of this thesis seems a bit fragmented, it's because Kent's thesis is a bit fragmented. He will jump from one point to another, back to the first point, to the seventh point, then back to the third point, before getting to the end of a paragraph. So, if mine seems to jump around from place to place, time to time, it's only because I'm trying to follow Kent's logic in this thing. The first part I'm going to be showing is a group of people that Kent Hovind has decided to make fun of, or insult. It's what you would call an ad hominem attack, and he has done a whole bunch of it in his thesis. I'm also including some information in the Bible that he put in that he got wrong or misquoted, and then also I have a bit information about history that he has wrong.
Benoit de Millet was very full of occult ideas. He wrote a book which was his name spelled backward, Telaimed.
And I know I'm going to mispronounce this, and I do apologize. Benoit de Millet. He was a well-traveled French diplomat, as well as he was a natural historian. He was the French consul general at Cairo and the overseer in Levant. He formulated a hypothesis as to how the universe was created. And are we supposed to think that the title of his book is spooky? Ooh, don't believe anything by this guy because he wants to name the book backwards. You know, just like those musicians used to do in the 80s with their satanic music.
On his Voltaire's deathbed he said, "I am abandoned by God and man. I shall go to hell."
Unlike Kent, I very much know that I am not the best at remembering how to spell stuff or pronounce things. So I am going to look at this because I don't want to get it wrong. Francois-Marie Arouet, who is known by his nom de plume, Voltaire, was a French Enlightenment writer, historian, and philosopher, famous for his wit, his criticism of Christianity, and especially the Roman Catholic Church, and his advocacy of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and separation of church and state. So, the quote, "I am banded by the gods," is 1. It is wrongly quoted. 2. Probably something he never said. And 3. The earliest reference I can find to this quote is 100 years after his death, and it was being quoted by a pastor who was talking about how Voltaire was wrong. Not the most unbiased source to get a quote from. Oh, by the way, Voltaire has an E at the end, Kent.
Aldous Huxley was one of the first intellectuals to openly promote taking drugs as a way to expand your mind and your experience.
Aldous Leonard Huxley was an English writer and a philosopher and a member of the Huxley family. The author of nearly 50 books, he wrote one in particular called Brave New World. He has nothing to do with evolution, and he is out of place in this thesis. Even Kent, who tends to try to tie anything he doesn't like into evolution, does not tie him to evolution, but he continues to put him in his thesis paper. Why? He is literally in this thesis just to impugn his grandfather's reputation, because his grandfather was known as Darwin's right hand.
Thomas Darwin, the grandfather of Charles Darwin. He was born in 1791 and died in 1802. He was an extremely fat person. In fact, he was so fat they had to cut a curve in the dining room table so that he could get up to the table.
And this has to do what with evolution?
He Anaximander taught Pythagoras, who is famous for the Pythagorean theorem used in mathematics.
Math is the evil daddy of evolution.
Units from his book Theories of the Universe pg 61 says,
This book, published in 1957, is the newest book I can find being referenced by Hovind. It was 30 years old at the time of Hovind writing his thesis. I must remind you this is a thesis that has to do with scientific discovery and information, and his newest reference was over 30 years old.
Lamarck died in poverty and was unwanted when he died.
Damn, that's cold.
He Charles Lyell was a lawyer, not a scientist.
Hey pot, meet kettle! Lyell was the Scottish genius who popularized the revolution work of James Hutton. He did a lot in his time to show that the world was old.
Sadly, many of the creationists of his Lyell day accepted his philosophy. They thought it was a time to edit the Bible and somehow make the biblical account of creation include eons of time.
What Kent has a problem with is at the time, people believed the world was only about 6,000 years old, and here he is showing information and facts showing that it could be quite older. And instead of ignoring the facts, some of the churches started to believe science and start to look at how they were teaching and alter it so that it fit the truth. And because of this, some of them were starting to see Genesis as a moral tale rather than the literal laying out of how this world was created.
Helaman promoted the teaching of Hutton.
Oh, and by the way, I want to point out that this thesis referenced Hutton quite a few times without once telling us who Hutton was. It was James Hutton, by the way.
They Lyman and Hutton saw that the Bible taught that you should obey the king and therefore the Bible stood in the way of a democracy.
Kent uses this to imply that they had a reason to make up data that they used to show the earth was old. The only issue is I can't find any reference to this anywhere.
Alfred Wallace came up with the several theories such as the survival of the fittest. This was used by the capitalists in the 1800s to justify the annihilation of anyone who did not fit in.
Unless you want to say that a thought or an idea is used in a way that was never considered by the originator of the idea, is still the fault of the originator of the idea, I'd watch what you are trying to say. The history of Christianity has quite a few stains in it, and if we were wanting to hold Jesus up to the same level as he's holding Darwin, then we'd have to say that Jesus was responsible for the Crusades and whack jobs like Kent Hovind.
For instance, Rockefeller, Carnegie, and some of those early tycoons were ruthless in business practices because they based their business practices on evolution. They said only the fittest can survive, so we will be the strongest and take over.
I can't find any evidence of this, and Hovind didn't bother to reference where he got it from. I don't see where they made any kind of statement like this. But let's say it's true. The non-evolutionary Genesis had rape, incest, and murder in it, and they were quite okay with that.
Wallace had very little education.
Hey, Kettle, meet Pot!
Alfred Wallace was heavily influenced by Malthus' book.
Alfred Russel Wallace was a British naturalist, explorer, geographer, anthropologist, and biologist. He is best known for independently conceiving the theory of evolution through natural selection. His paper on the subject was jointly published Charles Darwin's writings in 1858. Kent doesn't say who Malthus is, or what the title of the book is, or why it's even bad. I did some research, and I think he's probably referring to Thomas Roberts Malthus. And I think the book he's referring to is called An Essay on the Principles of Population.
It is reported by his Sir Julian Huxley, nurse, that on his deathbed, as he looked up to heaven with a blank stare, he said, "So it is true."
Sir Julian Sorrel Huxley was a British evolutionary, biologist, eugenist, and internationalist. He was a proponent of natural selection. We're supposed to take from this quote that Huxley was regretting his humanism as he died. The only place I can find this quote, though, is on creationism websites, so I'm not quite sure that it's true. But even if it is, it's quite ambiguous as to what the meaning of it is. For all we know, he could be saying, it is true, the sky's blue. There's no reference to what it is, and we have no idea what he's referring to.
To really understand the history of evolution, we have to understand the author. Satan is the mastermind behind this false doctrine.
Kent, if he figured it out, then he's not much of a mastermind. Joking aside, Kent spends a lot of time in this chapter talking about the history of evolution. Now, normally this might start with Darwin, maybe a little bit of information about the Greeks, but Kent's history of evolution starts in Genesis 1:1. Kent equates pretty much every non-Christian religion, historical disaster, natural disaster, and pretty much anything as being evolution. The flood? Caused by the evils of evolution. Communism? Evolution did it. The Holocaust? Evolution was responsible. Yoga? You better believe that's a sneaky way to teach evolution.
Confucius very strongly endorsed ancestor worship.
He laughs at the man who believed in ancestor worship while he snug in his belief received from a 3,000-year-old badly translated manuscript.
For the sake of the study, we shall call them Eastern and Western branches of evolution.
Evolution is bad either way, but Western evolution's better because Eastern evolution causes communism. I really wish I was joking about this. I really, really wish I was joking.
The flood was about 2400 BC, which makes it about 44000 years ago.
Someone should probably let the pyramids know that they can't exist, as the oldest ones date to 200 years before he has the flood here. They were also built throughout the years of the flood and after. So, according to Kent's timeline, the flood happened, and the 8 people that were left on the ark somehow immediately started building pyramids. That's the only thing that's possible to make it even close to match the historical dating we have on them.
Aristotle is known for many scientific discoveries and no doubt had a great positive impact on the world of science. However, his God was not the God of the Bible. His God was nature.
Thus, Aristotle burns in hell.
Beginning around 500 BC, the story gets a little confusing as we try to trace the history of evolution.
Don't worry about it, Kent. History tends to get a little wibbly-wobbly when you try to make everything fit your personal pet theory and make everything the result of your personal sin.
I personally believe that Satan fell from heaven about 100 years after the creation of Adam and Eve.
Kent Hovind is making a non-literal guess about the Bible? Mommy, I'm scared.
Ezekiel 28 tells of Ezekiel taking up a prophecy against Tyrus.
He repeatedly refers to the prince of Tyre as being named Tyrus. He wasn't.
Satan was jealous of Adam and Eve and their close union with God. The saying is true today. Satan wants your attention.
He could have just asked. I mean, have you seen his butt? Oh, and the things he could do with that tail.
Cain knew God wanted a bloody animal sacrifice, a lamb to be precise.
Lamb's blood! The blood choosing God's choose!
Cain promoted the evolution doctrine that man can progress by his own efforts.
Remember, farming is evolution. True Christians eat creationist meat.
Instead, Cain brought the fruit of the ground, which represents his own efforts to please God.
So wait, he tried to get someone to stop doing meat and into vegetables? Cain was the first vegan.
Cain was driven out from his family to wander in the world. His descendants apparently continued rejecting God.
Fun fact, some Christians use this passage as a way to explain black people and why it's okay to treat them worse than other people. Wait, that's not fun.
God has to destroy the inhabitants of the earth with a flood.
Don't worry about it, God. We've all had to destroy a city or two when playing SimCity.
Satan began to work on Noah's descendants.
Evolution Part 2, Devil's Boogaloo.
The descendants of Noah wanted to stay together and build big cities even though God had commanded them to spread out and fill the earth.
Remember, skyscrapers are evil toys of evolution. True Christians live underground.
I'm sure for several generations they told stories about how it used to be in the good old days when there was just one big city and everyone was one happy family.
Well, Sonny, I ever tell you about that tower me and my friends built? Mom, he's doing it again!
There are basically three types of religions in the world: atheism, pantheistic. The third type of religion says that God is outside of, above, and beyond his creation in any way.
Kent, I think a few hundred religions might want to have a word with you.
The atheists do not like the idea of God telling them what to do.
No, we do not like people who believe he exists using that belief as a way to try to control us.
The underlying reasons that evolution appeals to so many people is because it appeals to man's pride.
I don't see how we can believe this. Evolution is denying the idea that we are made out of sparks of the divine being, and instead are results of biological processes. How, in anyone's worldview, is that a step up from what he believes?
Anyone that does God in this world is hated by those that do evil.
Is that why the Christians hate us LGBT people so much?
Man is trying to exalt himself. This is what evolution is teaching today, that man is the pinnacle, the ultimate.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Evolution is not saying we are the pinnacle. We are not what it was trying to reach. We are well adapted to our environment, but if we lived in Kevin Costner's water world, we would drown and the fish would run the world.
They people who are cutting down others think making someone else look worse will somehow make themselves look better.
Don't worry about it, Kent. You're making yourself look bad without any help from us at all.
The main idea is to bring God down off his throne. Stan has always wanted to do that and he hasn't given up yet.
Next time, Gadget. I promise I'll get you. Next time.
In about 1895, a man named Yuan Fu translated Thomas Huxley's book into Chinese. That was probably the turning point in China. It led the way for communism to take over many of the Oriental countries.
Evolution is a filthy communist spy. All Christians are capitalists.
They people today have been so brainwashed away from God by evolutionary philosophy that we must begin with the basics. You see, the God of creation is above and outside of the creation.
Sort of like the Big Bang?
Mohammed developed an unusual mixture between Christianity and Judaism.
Hey, wait a minute. Isn't that Christianity?
The God of Mohammedanism is not the God of the Bible by any stretch of the imagination.
The Muslims might disagree with you.
The hold of Aristotle's philosophy on the minds of the people of the time was so strong that scientific progress was hindered. We face the same thing today. The faulty teaching of evolution is hindering scientific progress.
Like climate change, fetal stem cells, and renewable energy.
The Renaissance was a time for getting people to think again. They began to be skeptical of religion in general and the Catholic Church in particular.
So it's okay to question Christianity, just not your version of it? Gotcha.
I think it is not a coincidence that people who are atheists or evolutionists frequently have a wicked lifestyle.
Tell us more. Inmate number 06452-017.
The Darwinists said that men used to believe in many gods and gradually declined to just one god. They taught that religion actually evolved. This is a false teaching that is still promoted today in universities.
Because we have examples of religions evolving. Christianity itself is an evolution of Judaism.
On Judgment Day, Marx will be responsible for the lives and blood of millions of people.
Just a reminder, this is a thesis paper. He put this in a thesis paper.
The New Age movement is nothing more than the old rebellion against God and the belief in evolution, with a little Hindu and Buddhist religion mixed in with it.
Yoga is evil evolution. Good Christians never stretch their muscles.
This theory, recapitulation theory, is used for the justification for abortion. It human embryo, the abortionists say, is not fully human yet, and it is okay to kill it because it hasn't yet reached the human stage.
No, this hypothesis was proven wrong, and doctors tend to frown on using science that's been proven wrong. Thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all had fun, as much fun as I did reading and writing this crap. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to hit that little bell, ding ding, so that you know when I do our next video. if you want to talk to me, you can find me on Twitter at atheist_T_girl. Or write a question or put a comment in my videos. I watch for them and I reply to them. And thank you all for coming. Okay, y'all have a great day.